Sustainable development is not only possible and economically sensible, but vital to our survival. That's why, all over the world, architects, designers, and engineers are using technology to design intelligently and build responsibly. I'm Carl Bass. We're proud to show our ongoing commitment to sustainable design by sponsoring this important documentary series.
Was it a conscious decision or a momentary lapse of reason? How did progress take priority over humankind? How could the desire for a modern way of life that threatens our future be considered a way of life? Could it be we are connected to all things in the universe, not the center of it? That suburbs in Los Angeles affect the melting ice caps of Antarctica. Deforestation in the Congo affects the typhoons of Japan. Now we must face the insurmountable challenges for what they really are. Opportunities to reinvent and redesign. E squared, the economies of being environmentally conscious. Cultural, social, and economic diversity. It is what keeps the fabric of our communities strong. Affordable housing can be what keeps that diversity intricately woven into our lives. With 14 million American households spending half of their income on rent, the need is clear. Unfortunately, for the past 50 years, many attempts at affordable housing disregarded the very notion of community. Many were merely isolating, while some were a complete failure. How can these tears in the fabric of our communities be repaired? Is it possible to do it in a sustainable way?
The history of affordable housing or urban design, it used to be about dividing and isolation. And we see that really didn't work.
The buildings that were built with the noble goal of creating as much affordable housing as possible, but that meant that they were as cheap as possible. And although they took care of the physical aspects of community, they completely ignored the social and cultural aspects of community.
So the idea now, the new era, is about combining. How do the different income levels help each other? How does the built environment and the natural environment cohesively adhere to produce something that's called a working, viable, livable community?
Communities are actually very rich networks of multiple systems. So they're not only networks of housing and transportation, and schools and libraries and cultural facilities, they're economic networks, communication networks, and these all work together in mutually reinforcing ways. And the more integrated and complex they are, the richer the social and cultural life of the community.
Biologists have suggested that this richness, the human desire to interact with the diverse world around them, is innate. Socially, biologically, and culturally, human beings are hardwired to seek out and connect with people not entirely like themselves. What role could habitat play in fostering this diversity?
So let's just jump right in. The reason for this meeting is we're going to focus on the green aspects of the building so that we can advance them as we advance the design.
Jonathan Rose has become a leader in what others considered to be impossible, building affordable housing that is environmentally responsible, not only through incorporating green design and construction, but by increasing the diversity and the overall health of the communities it houses.
Jonathan Rose fits in beautifully in terms of demonstrating the how, that he, as a successful developer of mixed income communities, can say, look, I'm doing this. You can do this, you can do it legally, you can do it profitably, you can do it beautifully.
Yeah, I'd love to know what the health is of people before they move into the building, and then like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, we're having an organic food co-op on center, we're having a health club on center. Theoretically, we're creating a healthy culture or culture oriented toward health.
And he sees the big picture. He sees how things fit together. He's well-traveled, he's philosophical, he gets how the world works and the synergies, and that there's a better way of developing. And when you're engaged in the very business of building, which is contributing more than any other sector to the greenhouse gas emissions and directly contributing to some of the environmental problems that we're looking to solve, there's a direct responsibility, and he's definitely leading the way.
This is a picture of what is truly sustainable. This is a village in Tibet. It's 1,000 years old. There are only 3 inputs to the system, which are sunlight, rainwater, and human intelligence. I am a third-generation real estate developer. I'm actually very proud of my trade. And I know that most often when I tell people who I first meet that I'm a real estate developer, I get a look of shock and kind of disgust in their face, because our industry has created many wonderful things, but we've also created some really bad things. And then I love to tell them that we build affordable housing, and that all our work is very green, and that we build libraries and museums and performing arts centers, and watch as their definition of what a developer is and could be is transformed. The company's mission is to repair the fabric of communities. That phrase comes from the Jewish phrase tikkun olam, which is to repair the fabric of the world. And their tikkun olam is this worldview that we have a moral responsibility, and actually a calling, to make the world a better place.
One of Jonathan Rose's first attempts at repairing a community's fabric was the renovation of an abandoned factory building in the village of Irvington, in New York's Westchester County.
A company called the Burnham Company used to be there, and the Burnham Company made boilers and it made greenhouses, like the greenhouse of the Great Botanic Gardens. And it moved out in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and left this building right next to the train station on the main street in the heart of a suburban New York City village. And yet a very mixed village, a village of wealth and blue collar. The building sat vacant for a while, and eventually the town bought it so that it could control its own development.
Rose's initial plans to reinvent the Burnham building as affordable housing were met with little enthusiasm in Irvington.
We came back with a plan to not only beautifully historically renovate the building and to build affordable housing, but also to put the community library on the lower floors. And by bringing together these 2 constituencies, the library constituency and the affordable housing constituency, the village with unanimity endorsed the project and gave enormous support to making it happen.
While the town never thought affordable housing could possibly be green, Rose demonstrated that it would not cost more and would save money in the long run. However, the great win for the community wasn't the preservation of an abandoned building near public transit, or even its use of green building materials. It was that the development took sustainability to a new level.
In a place like Westchester County, the people who serve those communities can't afford to live in those communities. If you get to the real core of sustainability, which is somehow trying desperately to preserve the fabric of a community, building affordable housing is at the core of sustainability. And that's what Burnham does.
The real importance of the building was it is one of the first affordable housing buildings that's right in the very heart of a community. And with the mixture of with literally being on top of the library, it means that the low-income residents are right there where your kids are and your grandparents are and everybody else who goes to the library, and it's totally safe. And nobody knows who, when they're walking in a door, is a low-income resident or a high-income resident. And it made the case for affordable housing in Westchester County.
Another community project Rose helped develop is the David and Joyce Dinkins Gardens, named after New York City's first African-American mayor and his wife. Designed by a team led by Datner Architects, the project is located in central Harlem, currently in the midst of a social and economic renaissance. The neighborhood has periodically faced inadequate housing. In the 1970s, parts of Harlem lost up to 40% of their residents, leaving entire city blocks abandoned. Partnering with the Harlem Congregation for Community Improvement, Rose added another aspect of community sustainability: ownership.
Harlem's Congregation for Community Improvement. It was an interfaith organization started by a congregation of about 90 churches in 1986. Basically, we're a non-for-profit organization that works on the revitalization of Central Harlem. On this project, we're co-developing with Jonathan Rose Companies, and we're going to be the owners of the building at the end of it. So it was vital that we were all in from the very beginning of the process. It's one thing when you're developing a project and you're walking away from it. It's another thing when you're developing a project and it's going to be yours. You or someone of your staff, they're going to have the headache of dealing with a leaking roof 2 or 3 years after, or health issues, or maybe a major rise in asthma.
Almost a third of the units will go to young adults who've recently grown out of the city's foster care program.
And 40% of those kids, when they turn 18 in a day, they're kicked out of the foster care system. They don't even have suitcases. They're given black garbage bags to put their possessions in, and they're thrown out on the street, and 40% of them go homeless. So the goal of this project is to create housing for these kids. At the same time, if we created a building that was just 86 units that was only housing for youth aging out of foster care, we'd be creating the very monoculture that I was against in the beginning. So it's a third youth aging out of foster care and 2/3 low-income residents from the building.
So the idea of mixed income, the idea of mixed use in a building, living up top and commercial space on the bottom, keeping the sidewalk vibrant. The idea of Jane Jacobs' eyes on the street, all these developments and all these projects started coming into play. The 25 units that we're talking about, kids aging out of foster care, they're in the system, they've been in the system, and then suddenly they're on their own. The idea being that you're not just sent out there with the wolves, but we're going to lead you, we're going to guide you, we're going to give you a safe place, we're going to give you a secure place. We're also going to provide the support that you're going to need as you go through this transition.
So in the base of the building, we have a youth construction trades academy. And we're actually taking some of those kids and walking them through the site as it's being developed so that they will participate actually in the development of their own building for which their future academy will be housed.
If we can instill a sense of security, a sense of health, a sense of ownership, then that starts to permeate on another level.
One of the functions of Dinkins is not just to house people, but also to educate them. And again, going back to that Burnham precedent, there is that sort of combined role of the building, not just to provide housing, but also to provide another important component piece of life.
In the backyard, we've created this beautiful teaching garden so that during the pleasant months, the Construction Trades Academy spills out to the outside where there's this great learning garden for the kids. And then beyond that, there's a community garden, so there's an interface with the larger community where there are garden plots where people can garden vegetables, etc.
There's an interesting fabric about Harlem, even the cornices, the delicate fenestration on the windows, the fire escapes. When you look down an avenue, you can see all these intricate details, and that's what makes up the neighborhood. How do you then build something new that remembers that and doesn't stand out, doesn't jut out like a sore thumb, but it actually embraces it and uses that? We're hoping that this will be a huge example. This is affordable housing. It's going to be a green building. It's going to work. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be healthy. And we're going to have a number of different persons, socially speaking, within this building. The finances work. It's being built, and we're hoping that it's an example. This is how we can do it. It's a beacon that just stands out there and shows the way.
When the New York Department of Housing Preservation and Development announced a design competition for a 60,000 square foot site, Rose saw a chance to symbolically relaunch the idea of affordable housing in the place that saw the worst of it, the South Bronx. A low point in the 70s saw huge numbers of residents flee, leaving many buildings abandoned.
Some of this that we see from this vantage point just can't be salvaged. They ought to be torn down and perhaps recreation areas installed or extend the park that we just came through.
In 1977, Jimmy Carter came to a street in the South Bronx and proclaimed it the worst slum in America, and said this was essentially ground zero for what was happening to urban America and the decline of our cities, and that this street in the South Bronx was a place where he was going to announce a new urban policy and really begin the turnaround of urban areas. Over many decades, the city has turned around, and it's been led by areas like the South Bronx. And so we felt it was important as a symbol to come back to the South Bronx, to a piece of land there, where in many ways the efforts to begin turning around the city through affordable housing development had begun. And that was one of the reasons why this site was so important.
"32 teams from around the world responded to the initial call for the New Housing New York competition. Only 5 were chosen to submit full-fledged proposals for the South Bronx site. The winner would receive the site for $1.
The reason we wanted to do an architectural competition is because we wanted this to put both design quality but also sustainable design first and foremost in the work that we were doing.
For the competition, Rose teamed up with another developer, Phipps Houses, and architecture firm Statner and Grimshaw to form PRDG. Their proposed design, Via Verde, was a mixed-use, mixed-income development using a number of cutting-edge green features for a truly sustainable community.
And we really look forward to an ongoing collaboration, not just within our team, but the entire community that's made this project possible.
We very, very much are grateful to have been selected to win this project. The whole team feels a great responsibility to do something that is both visionary, sustainable, and practical.
Ultimately, we liked the most about this, the winning design, about Via Verde, was that it took the definition of sustainability to another level. We thought this project was a great example of a different kind of sustainability, of a community sustainability that can be a real model for other work that we do in affordable housing.
One of the things we discussed was how to do design that will really promote wellness. And for instance, we're really thinking about the design of our stairways, because one of the things that has
The winning design was the result of an ongoing dialogue with community members. The team listened to the needs of the people who would actually be living in and near the site.
I was asked, what type of security will be provided? Will it be cameras or guards?
On these rental apartments and also the sale of the co-ops, what criteria are you going to use to qualify the renters?
We really need nutrition programs for people with HIV and hepatitis C, because sometimes what's good for people with HIV, they may
The architects and designers found that one concern dominated the discussion. In order for the residents to thrive, the design team needed to address not only their housing, but their health.
In the South Bronx, we happen to be 17.5% higher than the national rate of asthma because we're the viaduct for going into Manhattan, Queens, to Westchester County, or even to Jersey. When a child has poor air quality and they always have asthma attacks, what happens is that they miss school, parents have to miss work, so they are always worried about where the next meal is or if they have to actually choose between buying food or paying rent.
And the community said, we want you to focus on health. We're a very health-impacted community. So we brought Montefiore Hospital to the ground floor to bring in a community health center, and we're organizing a community-based organic food co-op in the building, plus a health club exercise room. It'll be a marvelously healthy environment.
To help reduce health risks such as asthma, air quality was an important consideration. Rose's team used advanced green technologies to increase circulation, as well as simply giving most of the units 2 exposures for natural cross-ventilation. When completed, Via Verde will supply 139 rental units for low-income families and 63 co-ops designated as affordable housing.
site is a long, narrow site that faces south. So first, the most obvious thing was take advantage of the southern exposure, bring as much sun and daylight as we could into it. And that clearly said, start low and step up. And that then gave rise to the idea, because I believe so much in diversity, we start low, let's do townhouses. Let's really start low and build a community based on the ground, and then rise to mid-rise. And then on the northern side, so you're not blocking into the sunrise, put a tower.
You come into the building at grade, and as right in front of you as you enter off the courtyard, the building literally does ascend, and you yourself can then also ascend. You can go for a walk, and you start in the courtyard, go up the amphitheater, go through different landscape features with trees and planted gardens and meadows and all that, and you kind of walk your way partially up the building.
And there are a series of gardens and orchards on the rooftop that engage people in making stuff, in growing stuff, in being able to experience the incredible joy of, grabbing something off of a bush or a tree that one doesn't have in apartment living in New York. We believe in the power of landscapes to educate, both in a very active way and in a very passive way. At Via Verde, we believe that we'll be able to do it both ways.
When we were struggling to define what the kind of basic concept of the project was, we realized that there was an option where things like a tendril could be a very good metaphor for what the building can be. It spirals as it's trying to achieve something. It's spiraling for a reason. It's spiraling to find something so it can hold on and stabilize itself and grow around. And that metaphor kind of translated to what we were trying to do as a project. I mean, the project wants to be a seed in the community to create an oasis, a place where people can now find home as a shelter where they can really thrive and they can feel very comfortable, and we can hopefully provide housing that makes people happier, healthier.
And I think it creates a new dynamic that people haven't seen, for people to actually think that in the Bronx you can actually develop housing that will be sustainable. I think it brings back the Bronx, and that people need to realize that the cliches need to stop, because the people here are committed to seeing the development occur. And we now have the commitment of the city government, the state government. But we're hoping with the change, there will also be an engagement by the federal government in the future. What I hope to see in this neighborhood are young people realizing that they can leave the neighborhood and go to school, but they can come back and be productive here in this neighborhood, because it provides the type of employment that one would seek to find in other portions of the city of New York, other parts of the country.
In terms of the question of whether this is really an evolution or a revolution in affordable housing, I would say it's a revolution. I would say it has the potential to really change the way we build affordable housing here in New York City and across the country. What is revolutionary, I think, is thinking about sustainability much more broadly from a community point of view.
I strongly believe if you have a safe and secure place of shelter, you can then start to focus on other more important things. Things such as education, things such as escalation of job, things such as your community. The new era is about holistic design and holistic attitude towards the community. So architecture and design should strive for that. Now I know it sounds really theoretical and it sounds like this wonderful utopia, but the idea is we have to start somewhere.
We can do a lot, but it's only one piece. And one has to focus on all those aspects of network building and network integration, really, to create the healthiest communities. And by the way, those are things that often are self-arising. You can't plan them all. The best things don't come often from deciding how to build the best community, but rather creating the potential for the community to create itself.
Well, I think when you live in a place that is designed with high architectural aspirations and that takes the residents seriously, it enhances human dignity. Humans have extraordinary potential to achieve things. We have seen, not only through our architectural work, but so much other work, that the higher people set their aspirations, the more they're able to achieve. And so we think that young kids growing up in a place like this will feel like they are part of something great, we hope, and that they can do something great in their own lives too.
For more information about E Squared, visit our website at pbs.org. E Squared is available on DVD. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
As you have seen, many of those who are creating a more sustainable world through innovative design rely on technology. We're proud to sponsor this documentary series. At Autodesk, we provide tools that help architects, designers, and engineers experience their ideas before they're real, supporting them in their efforts to bring us a smarter, more efficient, and greener future.